I got my start here and grew my following here by doing live video. Every morning, grab my coffee and turn on Facebook Live, do YouTube Live. I would do that every day, Monday through Friday, do a 15, 20-minute coffee with Wayne, let's talk about real estate. And it really gave people a chance to kind of get to know me.
Do you want to build your own brokerage? Maybe you want to build your own team. Maybe you want to be able to not be with the EXP or Real and do something more with an independent broker. Well, on today's episode of Real Estate versus Technology, we're going to talk a little bit about that and also get into some stories with today's guests. And if you do us a favor, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and a big thanks to Liftoff Agent, #1 marketing and positioning agency, for sponsoring Real Estate versus Technology. So today we're going to go to Pensacola, Florida, and we're going to go ahead and meet with the founder of the Peacock Real Estate Group. And we have the one and only Wayne. Let's go ahead and get him on the show. Here he is.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. I know before we got on air, we're both very prompt, 30 minutes prior. No co-host for Dan, so we'll have him on the next one. But I'm glad we got a little debrief there, and the ring light's looking good.
Excellent. Yeah, I was worried a little. I was looking a little washed out for a second there. You know, like we say, technology can be our friend or our enemy.
Yes, real estate versus technology. It's always never ending. The process of sound and lighting and what have you. And, you know, even for us in our in-person podcast studio, we've been going through some technology changes as well with camera angles and making sure not to record online, because sometimes the internet goes down. You're stuck. It's like a duck in the water.
Exactly.
So we want to get into your story, man. So it sounds like right now you're building a team. You're in Florida. You're an independent broker. Yes. And so let's lead up to the point of where you're at now. And we'd love to get into some techniques and some hurdles and some things that you got over and overcome in your career to help any of our viewers and listeners out there with maybe something that they're going through, or maybe someone who's listening is going to take the same path that you've taken. So first and foremost, why did you choose real estate?
Well, you know, it's not as crazy a story as some I've heard, but my background's healthcare. Really? I worked in healthcare for about 30 years. I know I look 19, but I'm a lot older. I mean, really, the hospital I was working for was sold, and I had an opportunity to either move to the area where the primary hospital was located, or, you know, do something else. And I was living in a very small town in the mountains of North Carolina. And so I always joke, it was either Walmart or real estate. And I love it. I didn't understand how the industry worked. How do you get paid? How do you live until you get paid? And so I found myself kind of at that turning point. It was like, well, now or never. And I jumped in North Carolina at the time. This was prior to COVID. There was no online. You had to go to an actual school. And so the closest school was about 2 hours away in Asheville, North Carolina. And I took the course and loved it. I really enjoyed meeting the people that were in the course. The instructor was amazing. And I thought, well, you know what? It can't hurt. Let's give it a try. And I haven't looked back. You know, that's been 5 years ago now. Wow. And I have just really, I've gone from that to where I am now. And I'm in a 6-figure career now, which is amazing to me. Wow. How much I've done in such a short space of time.
Wow, that's awesome. So anyone who's viewing and listening, so when you first got your license and got going, how did you pick a brokerage? Like, did you join a team? Did you pick a brokerage? How did you get your feet off the ground?
So what I did, and actually our instructor recommended that we interview with everybody we could, and she gave us a few criteria to kind of look for, but I really wanted to be in a non-competing brokerage. But I also was in, we called it the tri-state area. So we bordered Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia. So I was looking for a broker that had a presence in all those states, since it was a short drive to each one.
Yeah.
And I primarily focused on North Carolina and Georgia. So I went with a brokerage that didn't necessarily have the lowest split, their highest split, but there were offices on both sides of the state line so that I could bounce around and really see which state I preferred doing business in. So that's why I chose. I first started out with Coldwell Banker. They had an amazing training program. And the broker himself really is what made my decision, honestly. But I did like that there were offices in every area. So if I was showing property in Georgia, I had an office I could easily pull into and print or stop and have a meeting or whatever I needed to do with a client.
I love that. It makes a lot of sense to make sure to be flexible, figure out where you want to go, find a good broker. I mean, splits definitely are important as well. And I'll hear a lot of stories too, people joining teams just because they got to get some type of cash flow sooner than later. And so how long did it take you up until getting your first deal?
So I always say I was fortunate, but I worked hard and so my background with military, and I owned a restaurant for several years as well. So those things kind of gave me a court advantage, I would say, because I already knew how important it was to A, be structured, and B, brand. Make sure you brand yourself. And I was starting, right from the get-go, I started doing videos. I already knew how to do Facebook ads, thank goodness. 5 years ago, there weren't as many this course and learn how to do it. So I was already doing that a lot with my restaurant. So I just pivoted and did the same thing with my real estate and started getting calls pretty quickly because I was very connected in the town as well. And it was a smaller town. But I also reached out and got referral partners. So again, I mentioned in the beginning, I was on a state line. A lot of folks in Georgia didn't want to come over to the North Carolina side. The contracts are very different. How we close is very different up there. So I started just making connections with Georgia agents, and I got a lot of referrals, agent to agent referrals. And so with the branding, making sure I set a schedule for myself, I treated from the very beginning, I treated this as a job, not, well, let me go do, I'll go do this and do that. And then I'll go to the office for an hour. I was in the office every day. I'm not a big fan of cold calling. I do it because sometimes I feel like it's a necessary evil. But I was in the office really focusing on how can I brand myself? How can I meet more people and have more conversations to let people know that I'm here to help them?
Yes.
And also as a new agent, it took me a minute to realize that just because my experience wasn't in real estate didn't mean I didn't bring value to the table. And I think that's what a lot of new agents, get hung up on. I know I was in my head a lot about it. How can I offer value when I've never closed a deal? So I just drew from my experiences in other things I had done and other jobs I had done, and just knowing what people expect. People just want somebody to hear them, be there for them, and help make the transaction as smooth as it can be. So I focused on those things. And that's how I grew my business and grew my brand, just being out there letting people know that I'm here, I've got the experience they need, and, went from there. And now, fortunately, I've had enough experience in real estate that, I can pull on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like for our viewers and listeners, definitely a couple takeaways. Be focused, be deliberate, and treat it like a job. I think a lot of agents out there don't treat their business like a business. So you're going to get your real estate license. If you're new in the business, make sure you sit down, go to the office, get around people that are already closing transactions, figure out a way to get yourself out there.
Definitely.
You're here to serve and here to help. And it sounds like when you had this really cool sweet spot because you're over those lines for those two different states. So that helped you really be able to get those referral business coming in. And that's awesome. The Facebook stuff, right?
Yes.
Back then, too, Facebook was a lot easier. You could get deals. You can get a lot more attention on Facebook for a lot more cost effective compared to where we're at now. I think things are a little more complicated and it's a lot more convoluted. There's a lot more people in there trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. And then, I was in the business for a few years when I decided to move. I left the state. I had to get a new license and moved, from North Carolina to Florida.
Yeah.
Now I had worked in the town I'm in now. I'm in Pensacola, Florida, and I had worked here for several years in one of our larger hospitals. So I did already have connections, but a lot of those people didn't know I was in real estate now. And, so I pretty much had to start my business over. And I used the same principles again, just really making connections with people, getting my Facebook set up. I always follow the 80-20 rule. I try to do 80% content based on just the area and how I can be helpful, even if it's, hey, you're new to the area and you're looking for the best place to have raw oysters. Here it is. So I do a lot of that. And then I sprinkle in, here's a house I've got listed. Here's an open house I'm doing this weekend. And really, I got my start here and grew my following here by doing live video. Wow. I would get up every morning, brush my teeth, grab my coffee, and turn on, Facebook Live. And then when I got enough momentum, I was allowed to do YouTube Live. And I would do that every day, Monday through Friday, do a 15, 20 minute, hey, it's coffee with Wayne. Let's talk about real estate. And sometimes I wouldn't even talk about real estate. Sometimes I would just talk about events that are going on or the gardening I did on the weekend. And it really gave people a chance to kind of get to know me, not just the, I say polished, but not just here's a script I'm doing, here's some stats I'm doing. This is more of a, and people love it, of course, when you share the stories about the lockbox not working and your client staring at you like, who did I hire? They can't even unlock the door. That happens to all of us, no matter how long you've been in the business. So that's really what I did to kind of get my business going and get the followers. And I'm not one of those that can sit here and say I've had 42 closings from social media.
Yeah.
I attribute it to two, honestly, that came directly from Facebook. But when I'm out in the community, it amazes me because some days we all have them where I'm thinking, oh, what am I doing? It's not working. And, the universe, the Jesus, whatever you believe in, here's that. And I gave somewhere and somebody's like, oh, I watched your Facebook Live yesterday and that was some really good information. So people do watch. They may not always comment. They may not always, follow you, but they do watch and they do tell people about you. So if I could give anybody any piece of advice, especially if they're trying to crack the social media game, is just do it and try to be consistent with it. And just make sure you're learning from your mistakes. And every week, every day, you're trying to get better, whether it's buy a new light or, I started out just using my phone. I didn't have a camera and a ring light and all that. I was just using my phone and making sure I was on the back porch where I had some good natural lighting. Yeah. So, and I always try to give a few tips, something that people can take away, and it doesn't have to be rocket science. People just like the information. So that's what's worked for me. And I've just tried to stay true to who I am and just be me. And that was one of the things I'd always say in my live at the end, just be you, because people want to work with you. And,
100%. And that makes a lot of sense. I feel like a lot of agents out there that might be listening and watching now might be scared or have fear of how they can continue the momentum going from one state to another state. So I love how you broke that down and gave our viewers and listeners some things to think about as far as just like do what already was working and stay consistent and then jump live. Like that's super smart. And after 30, 60, 90 days, people start to form this habit and it's almost turns into a ritual. They keep just watching you. So are you still doing the lives?
And that's what I was going to say. I stopped at the beginning of the year because I decided to get back to the gym and got a puppy. So it has changed my morning routine, but I at least once a week someone reaches out to me and says, I really miss those things that you used to do. So I was just looking at my calendar today, and I'm going to put them back in because people do watch them, and it also helped me get my mindset going for the day. Yeah. So I automatically every morning would start thinking and talking real estate, even if the majority of my live was about, say a Mardi Gras event or a Christmas parade or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I am going to start back doing them because I do get a lot of comments. People do miss them and they were watching it. So I still do them. I don't do the same format. I do a live pop-up open house every Friday. I'll pick usually I try to find someone in the brokerage if I don't have one of my own, get their permission because some agents get funny if you don't ask them first. So I always ask the listing agent's permission, and then I'll go do a live as a pop-up open house. And because I have those followers from my other lives, they'll start watching. Mm-hmm. But another tip, sometimes nobody watches. So you have to keep your momentum up and you keep acting like somebody's watching, even though you see that little thing go 0, 1, 0, 1, you just keep doing it.
And they might also watch it later on, just because someone's not watching right then. It could be later on. So, so that's also something that I think is very valuable for the future. And it's interesting. You said something that got my attention, which was, and I think a lot of people deal with this, right? You might have like the house and the cars and you got money in the bank and who knows, we have investment properties and cash flows coming in, all the things, but we still get down to ourselves sometimes. Is it not working? What's going on, right? If there's like a little bit of a low, or we don't have a listing at that time, or, closing or whatever it is. And isn't that interesting how that pops up for us? Even though it's like, we're doing well, we still have to remind ourselves like,
Yeah, I just went to a sales training a few weeks ago that our brokerage hosted, and I had never really, if I had ever heard this term, it never stuck with me, but the speaker kept talking about your drunk monkey, and that's your drunk monkey talking to you, telling you, nobody cares anyway, or, oh, you're not going to do this. That's that little voice in our head that tries to keep us down, but you just have to ignore it and keep going because with real estate, what we do today is what pays us in the next 60 to 90 days. So you have to keep going. You have to just push through it. I have those days too. And, I've grown a successful team now. There are 7 of us on the team. Wow. And everybody's closing deals. Everybody's meeting clients. But some mornings I wake up and I'm like, what am I doing today? Why am I doing this? What's going on? And then I just have to remind myself, the best thing for me I've found is I go get on my bike or whatever workout I'm going to do that day, play some good music, and then just kind of let my mind clear and almost like a reset. Yeah. And then again, what really works for me is I have a calendar. Everything now is in my calendar. I'm in a coaching program and my coach said, put everything in there. In the beginning, it gave me anxiety, because I would look at my calendar the night before and I had no free time in there. And it was giving me a little bit of anxiety. So I make sure now I schedule, 30 minutes for me or whatever I need to do for that day. That's on there too. All my phone calls are on there. So for me, then when I start going through this kind of self-doubt, I look at my calendar and I just start ticking off through the things, so that I don't have time to just sit on the couch and, watch TV or scroll, get in that endless rabbit hole of Facebook and TikTok and the like. So that really works for me. Just setting a routine, having everything on my calendar. When the voices in your head start telling you what they shouldn't tell you, stop, get up from your desk, do something else for 10 or 15 minutes, and then come back to it. That for me works.
I love that. Yeah, it's definitely true too. The morning routines, I feel like they can get a little obsessive, and some gurus say don't do it. Some people say do it. Alex Hormozy, he's big in the content game, right? He's like, just take that time and work more. And it is what it is. I do agree with you. It's nice to be able to take that time to, might be a lot, but I get up at 4, so I like 3 hours just to start the morning, ease into it, and go to the gym and do the stretching and do the controlled breathing, the red light therapy, and all the things. And so it's just nice. You get started, and you're like, all right, I'm ready for this. Let's you know. So now let's get into. I'm curious about now. You have the team. When did that idea and thought come up? And let's get into some logistics. Someone's viewing and listening. They want to start a team. You know, you have 7, right? So let's talk about how that works.
Yep. So when I first started thinking about a team, I'll be honest, I thought about a team the minute I got my license, and I heard people talking about teams mainly because I like that team atmosphere. I didn't want to be on a team, but I knew I wanted to have a team because I like mentoring. I enjoy coaching. And just I'm an entrepreneurial minded person, but I knew I needed to wait until I was at a certain point. And for me, that certain point was when I couldn't handle all my clients and give them the the care and concern and the time that I like giving to a client, because I was having too many things going on and too many referrals coming in. And it's a good problem to have. I'm not complaining about it at all. But, talking to, and a lot of you listening may have heard this too, talking to other agents. So many agents were like, well, it just happened. I just happened to start a team. That was somebody just reached out to me. Well, I was very intentional of how I wanted to start my team. Now, on the same note, the way it kind of happened quicker than I wanted is I hired a licensed assistant. And so for us to work together, I was required to start a team. So in the beginning, I was a team, but it was just me and my assistant. And during that time, before I brought on my first, I'd say, buyer's agent, I made sure I had all the policies and procedures in place. Coming from a military and a medical background, documentation is everything. So I wouldn't say I had it as detailed and as fine-tuned as I would have liked to, or even thought I was going to. But I made sure I had my CRM set up so that there was a way to manage, track, and keep up with my clients. I had a buyer's guide, a seller's guide. I had a job description. Even though we're all 1099s, I had a job description for a listing agent and a buyer's agent. Also had a job description for a showing agent, because my plan originally was to have a showing agent helping buyer's agents. But that didn't really take off in my area where I am now. So for me, it was how big do I want to be? What do I need to have in place? What's my split structure? And what do I provide? What's the value I provide to the team? Why would, Johnny Appleseed want to work on a team with me? So I worked on all of that up front to make sure I knew what my team was going to offer. And, it sounds probably a lot more than it really is, but the biggest thing is I had to decide who I wanted to be and what brand I wanted my team to have. So that kind of rolls back to how I got started. Branding, advertising, just getting out there, asking the right questions. And then I met with, the agents, and I just asked them, what are you looking for in a team? And kind of went from there. Now, I wasn't planning to go to 7 agents as quickly as I did. I started my team in January of last year, and by January of this year, there were 7 of us. Wow. My goal at the moment by the end of this year is 10 agents on the team. I go back and forth between wanting to have the 25 agents that I hear a lot of people talk about. But for me right now, 7 agents is a really good number. I have enough business and I can generate enough business to keep us all busy and happy. So, but yeah, that's where it went for me. I made a very deliberate decision. I'm going to start a team. I'm going to start working on my SOPs. I need to figure out what the name's going to be, because I went back and forth from, using my name versus, the dream team or, the panhandle team or something like that. And I decided on my name because Peacock is pretty rememberable, or memorable rather. You can remember that, and it's kind of fun. What I didn't think about ahead of time is that NBC has every Peacock everything locked down. So I had to get kind of creative, and my website is .info instead of .com. So I didn't think about that far enough ahead, but we've made it work. So
Wow, that's super awesome. And I wanted to the point of like the 1099 and like putting together SOPs and KPIs and like the structure.
yes,
I think the biggest thing is less than like, yeah, they're not employees. So less than the fact that like, hey, this is what you're specifically supposed to do, but more so like, this is what I've done. This is what worked for me. And I know this would work for you because I've already done it. And I think that a lot of agents forget to themselves to think to themselves like, okay, what is the standard procedure when working with the buyer or working with the seller, decluttering your house, whatever it is, like you got to have that, right? Do we have a vendors list? Like what happens if something comes up? Having these things thought through. I mean, there's people out there that maybe don't really want to have a team, but they want to be on a team, or, they want to just serve support and do what you guys are doing on your team. And that makes them happy and fills up their cup. So, there's something for everyone. There's not everyone is the entrepreneur mind or wants to start a big business or start a restaurant, have you. So I just wanted to put that out there because that's something that came to my mind too. And I'm just like, well, that's good. They need the structure, to have more success.
Yeah. And, whether you're thinking about being on a team or starting a team, again, it all goes back to branding and making sure, like from the team leader point of view, I wanted to make sure I had everything in place so no one has to think about how to do something. Yeah. And also, so when I get a call, somebody wants to work with me. This has been a struggle for me personally. Somebody wants to work with me, and I say, well, I'm not available, but I have, Johnny Bravo, who is amazing. He's on my team. So I wanted to know that I could hand this person off to Johnny and they would get the same level of attention, level of detail, and, just service that they would get from me. So that was one of the things that helped me and helped the team, because so many of them, and I have team members that have, ranging from 5 and 6 years of experience down to 5 and 6 months. So, and I was really surprised. A lot of the seasoned agents were very thankful that we have those things in place, because it just helps them focus on what they need to do instead of trying to figure out what they should do.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I got a good one. I got a curveball for you. So you get a referral, they come in, and you get this where they're like, I have to work with you, Wade. I don't want to work with your team. What happens when you have that come up and you're super swamped, like so busy? I'm sure it's happened before.
Yes. So I have had that happen a few times, and generally what I do, if I really can't take them, because I am still in production, I haven't stepped completely out of production, don't really have a plan to do that anytime soon, but I have been in a situation where I really didn't have the time to give them. So I just go over things with them and I explain to them, I've got a pretty full plate right now. It's not that I don't want to work with you. I love working with you, but I'm still going to be here every step of the way for you. But if I hand you over to Michael's going to be able to devote at least 90% of his time to you, because he doesn't have all the commitments I have. So I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be overseeing things. My team, we work very closely together. We have team meetings every week where we kind of talk about our clients. And here's the thing, if Michael's not available and I'm always happy to come meet with you and show you, so I've done those things, and usually people are okay. And then if people are really uneasy, I say, okay, I'll make a deal with you. If you meet with Michael and you decide Michael is just not the one for you, you let me know, and I will take somebody I'm working with right now and switch them over if they're okay with it, so that I can work with you. I've only had one client in 2 years want to come back to me.
Wow.
Because I make sure that we're working together as a team, and so that my team is trained to do things the way I would do things.
Yeah.
and I've had a few people that in the beginning, they start out still texting me, oh, Michael showed me this house. What do you think about it? And then gradually, as we go through, the showing process, they stop texting me because I'm very confident that the team has the skills, and they also know that I'm available to them if they do get stuck. So yeah, it has been a struggle for me. It's hard for me sometimes to, because I don't want people to feel like I'm passing them off. So I try really hard to make sure I have my script in my head so that I'm letting them know, they're getting someone just as good, if not better than me, because with the way I am right now running a team, sometimes I'm not the best agent for you because I have too many things going on. And if you're really, serious and you want to let's show homes every day so I can make a decision next week, you're probably better off with one of my team that's all they're doing is working with buyers.
Definitely get more support, that help, and go through that process. And whoever's listening and viewing, I hope that is helpful, because I'm sure this is going to come up for you too, who's out there listening and viewing. And we're now coming to the end of the show, and this has been amazing, kind of covering multiple different facets from getting into the business and kind of how that process works, to going from one state to another state and own the business, to like getting your license and knowing you want a team. So now you have 7, and then we would love to have you back on in over a year from now and see if you have 10. Who knows? Maybe be at 25. But as we do get closer to closing out, we like to leave the viewers and listeners with something that you feel like would be impactful. So something that, quote, something that is going on with you, or just something that comes up top of mind that you think that could serve someone. So what would you like to leave with our viewers and listeners as we close out the show?
Yeah. So, something I've been thinking about this, and one of the things that was really impactful in my business very early on, and this is whether you're an independent agent, a team leader, or a team member. One of the first things my broker said to me when I was running myself ragged and I just couldn't figure out how to make this a career I was loving versus doing. And, one of the best things is make sure you set your boundaries for when and how you want to work, and then communicate that with your clients. Most clients are going to be perfectly fine with you letting them know that Sunday's the day you spend with your family. So that for me was the most impactful, because in the beginning, I was a Pop-Tart agent. The phone would ring, I'd drop everything, and I would run. And I saw a dramatic change in my business and the way I felt about my business when I started setting those limits and expectations and letting my clients know I'm still here for you. I'm just not going to show you property on Sunday because that's my time for me. So I would say if you can do that, figure out what day, at least one day a week. We need to rest and recuperate. We need time for ourselves. So if you at least figure out one day a week that you're going to take for you and your family or your friends, that was pivotal in my business and helping me really grow.
That's awesome. I got to say that definitely love the way you ended it, because I feel like that's so true. From setting intentions to setting schedules to living and dying by the calendar, like you said at the beginning of the show, like you are your business. And if you're not running your business like a business and being very deliberate and focused with that process, then your clients will run your business, which is running your life.
Right? Exactly.
And no one,
and it's not. Yeah, it's not their fault. If you haven't told them, if you haven't set those expectations with them, of course they're going to think, well, I'm home now. Let me call Wayne, or I just saw this house. Let's go right now. So you have to set those expectations and just communicate it with your clients. And 9 out of 10 are going to be perfectly fine with it. And that one that's not, refer him to somebody else. Yeah,
100%. I love that. Well, Wayne, this is a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us on.
Yeah, thank you.
Technology, of course, man. Of course. It was definitely great getting into your story. And just for everyone listening out there, Wayne at first was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you crushed it, man. You did a great job. Massive value, dude. I loved it.
Excellent. I'm happy to help anytime.
Awesome. All of Wayne's contact information is down below, to go ahead and give him a like and follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel And it is our intention for you to take things from our show here to apply to your business, have more massive success. So we'd love to hear your takeaways. Please like, subscribe, notification bell, and new episodes come live. Thanks so much for tuning in to an episode of Real Estate vs. Technology.